Andrew Harrington had it all: unimaginable wealth, a glamorous lifestyle, and a reputation for turning even the riskiest ventures into gold. Yet beneath the immaculate suits and sparkling champagne, his life teetered on the edge of a secret. On a night meant for celebration, a night he believed would prove his ultimate devotion, everything spiraled into chaos. One phone call changed it all. The mistress he'd pampered, wined and dined, seized that moment to deliver the most heart-stopping twist imaginable. As he watched her lips move, dread flooded his veins. Within minutes, Andrew's fortunes disappeared in a single, frigid command freeze, every account. The gentle buzz of Andrew Harrington's phone pulled him from a half-slumber. He lay sprawled upon 500 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets in his Beverly Hills mansion. Beneath him, the city stretched out with glittering promise, endless palm trees, glistening pools and driveways, displaying top-of-the-line European cars. At 42, Andrew was the apex of success, in many people's eyes an ultra-high net worth investor, known for orchestrating business coups from his corner office on Wilshire Boulevard. Andrew rubbed the fatigue from his eyes. The previous night had been a late one, filled with closed-door negotiations and last-minute calls to Zurich, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. Deals never slept, and neither did Andrew, it seemed. Yet this morning was special for one reason, and one reason only: Bella Rosario's birthday. He stepped out of his bed and onto the heated marble floors. The mansion was a testament to extravagance. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided a breathtaking panorama of Los Angeles at sunrise. His personal staff, housekeepers, chefs, and security bustled about. Andrew didn't like quiet, and that was precisely why his household operated like a small hotel. He glanced toward the balcony. The morning sunlight made the infinity pool shimmer. Leaning against the balcony rail, he felt a momentary peace wash over him. That peace, however, was riddled with guilt. In the master suite on a nightstand carved from rare Indonesian teak stood a photograph of Catherine Harrington, Andrew's wife. She was nowhere in sight this morning, off visiting her mother in Santa Barbara. But the presence of her photograph seemed to accuse him silently every time he gazed upon it. Andrew wasn't naive. He knew what having a mistress meant. He'd grown up in an environment where wealth overshadowed morality. He had witnessed enough questionable dealings and hush-hush arrangements among the wealthy class to understand that illusions often took precedence over truth. His father had once told him, "You can have everything, but you can't keep everyone happy." Andrew assumed that was permission enough. Yet something about Bella Rosario had drawn him in more powerfully than any casual affair. She was vibrant with a swirl of Venezuelan and Italian ancestry, giving her that exotic appeal he found irresistible. She radiated ambition, which he found simultaneously alluring and dangerous. She'd been a model, an aspiring entrepreneur, and a risk-taker. Andrew had met her at a fundraiser in downtown Los Angeles, an event covered by the local press and peopled by philanthropic bigwigs. She had been there on someone else's arm, but Andrew quickly discovered that Bella always looked out for one person first herself. He drank his espresso expertly, prepared by Roberto, his personal chef, and contemplated the day's plan. The private jet was fueled and waiting at Van Nuys Airport. He would whisk Bella away to Las Vegas for her birthday, where she'd hinted she wanted a grand party. The plan was to stay at the Sky Villas in the Palms Casino Resort. He'd arranged for a lavish birthday dinner with some of his influential friends, among them Richard Delgado, a tech mogul from Silicon Valley, and Li Wei, a Shanghai-based real estate tycoon. Bella had seemed ecstatic when he'd shared the plan. Still, Andrew felt an unfamiliar pit in his stomach. He was no stranger to big spending. He could drop millions on a yacht without blinking. But lately his relationship with Bella felt less like a glamorous indulgence and more like a precarious dance. Her demands were growing, and her knowledge of his financial dealings was deeper than he cared to admit. He tried to shrug off his unease. The day was meant for celebration after all. He'd get on that plane, pop open an expensive bottle of Krug champagne with her, and let the neon lights of Vegas wash away his anxieties. Before leaving, he shot a cursory glance at the news scrolling across his phone. Headlines about government crackdowns on offshore accounts, tighter international banking regulations, and rumor-laden pieces about how corporate moguls were storing wealth in complicated trusts overseas. Andrew grimaced. He had prided himself on staying a step ahead of regulators, structuring his assets across the Caymans, Switzerland, and Singapore. The game was never static, though. He was constantly shifting money from one shell corporation to another. Something Catherine had little understanding of, and Bella pretended not to pry into, though Andrew suspected she knew more than she let on. With his reflection staring back in the gilded mirror, her impeccably styled face betraying only faint lines of stress, Andrew walked down the grand staircase ready for the day. Curbside, his driver waited by the black Rolls-Royce Phantom. Andrew's phone chimed a message from Bella. Bella. Can't wait for tonight, darling. Thank you for making this birthday unforgettable. He smiled, typed a quick reply, and let the anxiety slip away. For better or worse, he was about to deliver the grandest birthday celebration Bella Rosario had ever imagined. And yet a tiny voice inside him murmured, "At what cost?" Little did he know that cost would be more than he could ever pay in a lifetime. Andrew Harrington wasn't born into abject poverty, nor was he born with a platinum spoon in his mouth. The Harrington family had always teetered between upper-middle-class comfort and mild financial strain. His father had been an investment banker at a mid-level firm, his mother a teacher. Growing up, Andrew had witnessed the constant friction that money, or the lack of it, created. He remembered his father's frustration when deals fell through and his mother's relief when his father brought home a bonus that allowed for a family vacation. From an early age, Andrew became obsessed with not just acquiring wealth, but dominating it, controlling it, never letting it dictate his fate. He attended the University of Pennsylvania, majoring in economics. There, his raw intelligence caught the attention of a visiting lecturer, a renowned hedge fund manager named John Paulson. Yes, that John Paulson, famous for his short position against subprime mortgages. After a brief conversation following one of Paulson's lectures, Andrew realized there were entire worlds of high finance, to explore worlds that awarded cunning and ambition with staggering wealth. He completed his degree with top honors, and soon after found himself interning on Wall Street. Cold nights spent analyzing data and flipping through corporate prospectuses paid off. Before he turned 30, Andrew was recruited by a top private equity firm. He soared through the ranks, forging alliances and securing deals that would form the foundation of his personal empire. Along the way, Andrew met Catherine, a law student at Columbia. Catherine was bright-poised and possessed a moral compass that Andrew found both admirable and naive. She believed wholeheartedly in justice and fairness, often spending her free time volunteering at legal aid clinics. Andrew was captivated by her elegance. She reminded him of everything he'd lacked in his ruthless climb. They fell in love, or so it seemed, and married soon after Andrew's first major bonus check came in. With Catherine's unwavering support, Andrew launched his own investment company, Harrington Capital. The firm specialized in leveraged buyouts, real estate flips, and secretive offshore ventures. Deals streamed in from every corner of the globe: hotels in Dubai, tech startups in Tel Aviv, shipping companies in Singapore, and a vast network of property acquisitions in Manhattan. Over time, Andrew's net worth ballooned from a few million to well over $1 billion. The media pegged him as an up-and-coming billionaire, the unstoppable rocket of the West Coast. His marriage, however, grew complicated. Catherine had never been comfortable with Andrew's more questionable dealings. She'd ask about his shell corporations, the layers of secrecy around his deals, and the rumors that he used advanced tax strategies that pushed legality to its very edge. Andrew brushed off her concerns, attributing them to her black-and-white view of the law. He assured her everything was perfectly legal. Despite the differences, Catherine tried to keep the marriage afloat. The couple was admired in social circles, glamorous galas, charity events, and philanthropic dinners. Catherine's legal background served as a respectable front for Andrew's sometimes shadowy empire. They owned properties across the globe: a penthouse in Manhattan, a vineyard in Napa, a villa in Italy, and of course their Beverly Hills mansion. By the time Andrew reached his early 40s, small cracks in the relationship had morphed into chasms. Catherine wanted children. Andrew delayed citing the unpredictability of his business. She demanded more transparency about his finances. Andrew retreated further behind his fortress of NDAs and offshore managers. Yet it wasn't until Catherine accidentally discovered a suspicious text on Andrew's phone, one from a certain BR, referencing a private meeting at a luxury condo, that real damage was done. Confronting Andrew led to half-truths and evasion. Despite her anger, Catherine had not immediately filed for divorce. Instead, she left to spend time with her mother, giving Andrew space to figure out what he truly wanted. But if Andrew's moral tether to Catherine was strained, his infatuation with Bella pulled him in the opposite direction entirely. She became a fixation, a symbol of danger and liberation all at once. He showered Bella with gifts, jewelry from Harry Winston, and exotic trips to Monaco or Capri. His business associates, some of whom had also partaken in extramarital liaisons, teased him about his new distraction. He brushed them off, certain he could keep his personal entanglements from disrupting the empire he'd built. After all, in Andrew's mind, nothing and no one could sabotage Andrew Harrington. He was unstoppable. But even unstoppable men have blind spots, and Bella Rosario was about to exploit every last one of his. Bella Rosario had not lived a life of comfort and stability. Born in Venezuela to an Italian diplomat, father, and a Venezuelan mother. Her upbringing was marked by upheaval, privilege, and scandal all at once. Her father, embroiled in political controversies, moved the family between embassy posts. Bella's mother, once a pageant queen, instilled in Bella an ironclad determination to use her beauty and cunning to climb social and financial ladders. By her late teens, Bella was modeling in Milan, gleaning every bit of knowledge from the industry's elite circles. She had a sharp eye for details, who was paying for what, which brand ambassadors needed favors, and which high rollers were ripe for social exploitation. But the modeling world grew stifling, and Bella had bigger ambitions. She spent countless hours studying finance blogs and eavesdropping on conversations among wealthy photographers, designers, and their clients. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Be more than a pretty face. Be the mind behind the scenes. When Bella relocated to Los Angeles, she found the city an endless tapestry of opportunity. She used her looks and charm to gain introductions at exclusive events, film premieres, charity galas, private art showings. The city was teeming with powerful men, seeking something more thrilling than their staid marriages. Bella was no stranger to their desires, but she played a careful game. She wasn't looking for a fling. She was looking for a partner she could leverage for a much grander scheme, someone with means so vast that once tethered, they'd be unable to slip out of her grasp. Andrew Harrington had been her golden ticket, though she never let on how carefully she engineered their meeting. Under the guise of charity fundraising, Bella circulated among the wealthy circles Andrew was known to frequent. Once she locked eyes with him across the room, a tall, confident man, whose watch probably cost more than most people's annual salaries, she made sure their paths crossed. It was easy, almost too easy. A captivating conversation about the success of the event, a small confession that she was trying to get her startup off the ground, and a subtle hint that she needed guidance from a man of Andrew's caliber. She knew precisely how to stroke the ego of a self-made billionaire. Andrew took the bait, enthralled by Bella's blend of sophistication, sensuality, and feigned innocence. Over countless dinners at Spargo and weekend trips to Lake Tahoe, she extracted information bit by bit, details about his offshore trusts, his shell corporations, the complex web of accounts he had built to shelter his billions. She played the part of the naive girlfriend, but behind her wide-eyed admiration lay an astute mind cataloging everything. Why gather so much intel? The truth was, Bella had her own reasons. She harbored ghosts from her past family members back in Venezuela, who were embroiled in legal battles over confiscated assets, unscrupulous fixers who demanded payment for services rendered during her father's diplomatic fiascos, and personal ambitions to secure her future free from the precariousness of the men she'd encountered. On the eve of her birthday, Bella prepared meticulously. In the plush bedroom of her rented Beverly Hills condo, paid for by Andrew. Of course, she flicked through her phone scanning contact lists. One name stood out, a financial consultant in Zurich, an old friend who specialized in special asset recovery. She scrolled through coded messages they had exchanged over the past year, refining a plan that would become her golden parachute. That evening, she stood before her mirror, carefully applying makeup that accentuated her large, dark eyes and high cheekbones. She slipped on a dress Andrew had gifted her, Valentino scarlet red. As she twirled, admiring her reflection, her phone chimed again. It was from Andrew, confirming the details of the trip to Las Vegas. He sounded eager, perhaps even nervous. Perfect. Bella picked up her phone and made a quick call. The man on the other end, speaking in hushed tones, confirmed he was ready to proceed with the operation as soon as she gave the signal. Her heart pounded. This was a monumental leap, one that could catapult her into financial security beyond her wildest dreams, or land her in dire legal trouble if discovered. But Bella had come too far to turn back. She had watched men like Andrew use discard and cheat on women who gave them their hearts. She refused to be another casualty. Instead, she would be the orchestrator. Her mother's voice echoed once more. Survival isn't about being the fittest. It's about being the smartest. She ended the call and gazed into the mirror. The reflection that stared back was no longer just a social climber or a beautiful mistress. It was a woman who had meticulously built a Trojan horse for one of America's richest men. Tomorrow night at her birthday party, the final piece would fall into place. And once that happened, Andrew Harrington's fortress of wealth would be hers to control or destroy. The Rolls-Royce pulled up to a private hangar at Van Nuys Airport, where Andrew's Gulfstream G650 awaited. The staff loaded Bella's designer luggage, 2 Louis Vuitton trunks, and an assortment of shopping bags brimming with outfits hand-picked for a night of celebration. Andrew was already on the phone, finalizing details with the concierge at the Palms. He glanced at Bella, who was busy chatting with Li Wei's assistant about dinner reservations. He couldn't help but admire how effortlessly she fit into his world of opulence. The flight to Las Vegas took less than an hour. During that short time, Andrew handed Bella a flute of champagne, leaning in to whisper, "Tonight is all about you." Bella responded with a playful smile, her dark eyes glowing. She placed her hand gently on his, sending a jolt of warmth through Andrew's chest. For a moment he forgot his lingering doubts. Las Vegas greeted them in its usual fashion, blazing neon signs, the clamorous din of slot machines, and throngs of tourists in search of their lucky break. But Andrew and Bella bypassed the chaos, escorted by a private security detail, to a limousine waiting on the tarmac. Within minutes, they arrived at the Palms Casino Resort, whisked up a private elevator to the Sky Villa. The suite was a study in modern luxury, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Strip, a glass-enclosed pool jutting out from the balcony, and plush white leather sofas arranged around a fully stocked bar. Andrew had spared no expense. He'd even arranged for a live DJ to spin mellow house music, while the staff put the finishing touches on a lavish dinner spread, lobster wagyu beef caviar, and handcrafted desserts. As Bella twirled around the suite, her face lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. "It's perfect, Andrew," she gushed. "Thank you for making my birthday so special." Andrew smiled, relieved to see her excitement. "Only the best for you," he replied. Not long after they settled in, the guests began to arrive. Richard Delgado. The Silicon Valley tech mogul was first a man of wiry frame and restless energy. He carried an air of self-assured brilliance, handing Bella a gift bag that undoubtedly housed something extravagant. Soon after the elevator chimed again, admitting Li Wei dressed in a tailored suit and accompanied by 2 associates who spoke minimal English but bowed graciously. Andrew made introductions, feeling an immense surge of pride. This was his crowd titans of industry, gathered to celebrate the woman he'd chosen. Between sips of vintage Bordeaux and playful banter about the next hot IPO, Bella was the evening's star. She moved gracefully among the guests, turning small talk into rapt attention. She had a way of making even the most jaded billionaire feel like the most important person in the room. Andrew watched, certain he had found someone as skilled at reading the wealthy mind as he was. Yet beneath the glitz, Bella's nerves crackled. She slipped into a private corner near the balcony, glancing at her phone. A single text from her Zurich contact read, "All set. Waiting for your go." Her pulse quickened. Timing was crucial. The plan required a precise moment when Andrew's guard was down and she had enough leverage to act. As the evening wore on, the group headed downstairs to the VIP casino tables. Andrew took a seat at the blackjack table, instructing the dealer to open with high-limit stakes. Bella cheered him on as he doubled down with reckless abandon. At one point, Andrew won a particularly large hand, prompting Richard Delgado to joke, "Guess it's your lucky night, maybe buy Bella an island next time." They laughed, and in that moment, Andrew's phone buzzed. He checked it, noticing a missed call from Catherine. He frowned. Why would Catherine call now? A pang of guilt knifed through him, but he quickly dismissed it. It was Bella's big night. He slipped the phone into his pocket, ignoring the twinge of conscience. Returning upstairs, the party swelled. Servers brought out a massive cake shaped like a diamond-encrusted crown, and Bella beamed as everyone sang "Happy Birthday." The sweet aroma of chocolate ganache filled the air. Cameras flashed as Bella posed her slender frame, draped in a midnight blue gown that sparkled under the chandelier. Andrew stood beside her, proud and oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around him. Between toasts, Andrew stepped onto the balcony to catch his breath. The neon lights of the Strip pulsed below. He remembered how he used to dream of being this man, wealthy, powerful, with a stunning woman on his arm. Now he had it all, but something about Bella's gaze that evening unnerved him. She looked at him not with the simple adoration he'd come to expect, but with an intensity he couldn't decode. Brushing aside his discomfort, he told himself this was just Bella's passion shining through. She's a force of nature, he thought with a grin. That's why I love her. Back inside, Bella found a quiet corner, again phone in hand. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding like a drum. The time was near. She could sense the shift, the swirl of liquor and ego in the air, Andrew's confidence at its peak. If she waited any longer, she risked losing her advantage. Her Zurich contact was on standby. Her father's old connections were standing by as well, ready to funnel crucial instructions to the banks. With a quick glance to ensure no one was watching, Bella pressed send on a pre-typed message. Now. The final curtain was about to rise on the birthday celebration. What should have been a crowning moment in Andrew's glamorous life would transform into a nightmare so shocking that even the city of sin would pale in comparison. Midnight approached, and the pulse of celebration refused to slow. The group had gathered in the Sky Villa's living room, where a roving magician performed card tricks that entertained the billionaire crowd. Bella, seated at the center of the plush sofa, indulged in the attention. Andrew stood nearby, swirling a glass of scotch and chatting with Li Wei about a joint venture in Shanghai. Then, in an almost imperceptible shift of tone, Bella's phone lit up with an incoming call. She glanced at it, her posture tensing. Andrew, noticing her sudden stillness, shot her a questioning look. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Just a friend," she replied with a polite smile, but the lie was evident in her eyes. "I'll take this in private." Andrew nodded, trusting her enough not to probe further. Bella stepped into an adjacent room, her heartbeat rattling her ribcage. She took a steadying breath before answering in hushed tones. The voice on the other end was that of her Zurich contact, calm and precise. "Transfer in progress. Final verifications needed." "Do it," Bella said, her mouth going dry. She ended the call and lingered for a moment, letting the magnitude of her actions sink in. This was it, the crossroad where she either soared into a realm of untouchable wealth or plummeted into disastrous scandal. Gathering herself, she rejoined the group, sliding back into the role of the radiant birthday girl with practiced ease. Meanwhile, Andrew's phone was buzzing incessantly with missed calls and text messages from his CFO, his legal team, even from Catherine. He'd set his phone to silent during the festivities, determined to focus on Bella's birthday. It wasn't until he felt a strong vibration against his chest, a final call from an unknown overseas number, that he excused himself and stepped away to answer. "Andrew Harrington speaking," he said, voice edged with irritation at the interruption. He was greeted by his CFO's frantic tone. "Andrew, thank God. We've got a situation, a big one. Are you aware that multiple banks have frozen all Harrington Capital accounts?" Andrew froze his mind, struggling to process the words. Frozen. That can't be right. I haven't authorized anything. Which banks are we talking about? All of them, the CFO croaked. Every significant account across Europe, Asia, and the US as of half an hour ago. We can't access operational funds. We can't process payroll, nothing. Even your personal checking accounts and lines of credit are on hold. Panic pounced on Andrew's nerves. This was beyond a glitch or a routine audit. Who ordered it? He demanded, trying to keep his voice level. We're still digging. Some legal directive we can't trace. A call came through from a high-level contact in Zurich with verified credentials. It looks official, Andrew. Our attorneys are scrambling to get an injunction. But it's midnight here. It's going to take time. Andrew swore under his breath. He raked a hand through his hair, fear slicing through him like a blade. This was catastrophic. How could an unknown directive freeze the accounts of a multinational empire in a single night? He noticed Bella re-enter the room. Her expression calm, as if oblivious to the chaos unfolding in Andrew's corner. Spotting his distressed state, she approached him, lightly touching his forearm. "Everything okay?" she asked with a concerned tilt of her head. He didn't answer her, ending the call abruptly and dialing his attorney, Mark Berryman, at Berryman & Weiss. After a few rings, a groggy voice answered, "Andrew." "What's going on?" "Mark." "Sorry to wake you, Andrew," said his voice, taut with urgency. "We have an emergency. Every single account has been frozen. I need you to find out who authorized it and undo it now." Mark asked for details, and Andrew relayed everything he knew. The lawyer promised to mobilize the firm's international contacts immediately. Andrew ended the call, heart thudding. He turned to Bella, trying to plaster on a reassuring smile, but failing. "Andrew," Bella asked softly, "you look pale. You're scaring me." He considered telling her, but he hesitated. The whole situation was so bizarre, so unexpected. Instead, he said, "It's a small hiccup with the accounts. I'll sort it out." The music pounded on the magician, conjured illusions, and guests laughed, oblivious to the meltdown brewing under the surface. Andrew's mind raced. He needed to remain composed. This was a public event after all, but he felt cornered. He watched Bella slip away again, presumably to answer another call or greet another guest. His instincts flickered. Is she somehow connected? The thought struck him like lightning, but he immediately dismissed it. Bella had never shown any interest in financial sabotage. She had everything to lose if Andrew's fortune disappeared. Unless he forced his paranoia down. "This is just some bizarre legal or governmental snag," he reassured himself. Perhaps a competitor orchestrated it, or maybe it was a tactic by regulators tightening their noose around offshore accounts. But the timing was too perfect, exactly during Bella's lavish birthday celebration. When Bella returned, Andrew tried to catch her gaze, searching for answers in her expression. She looked serene, radiant, even glowing from the excitement of the night. But behind her eyes lurked a flicker of something he couldn't place: anticipation, triumph, or maybe guilt. The phone calls kept coming. Andrew made excuses to the guests, retreating to a quieter corner to field inquiries and demands from employees worldwide. His phone's battery plummeted as he hopped from one frantic conversation to the next. His mind spun with contingency plans. He'd call in favors, tap alternative lines of credit shift assets that weren't yet locked. But every route he attempted seemed instantly blocked by the freeze. At one point, Bella approached him softly, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe we should end the party," she whispered. "You're clearly upset. I don't want to celebrate if you're in crisis." Andrew looked at her, a swirl of confusion and anger rising in his chest. What if she had triggered it? How would she even manage that? He realized he had told Bella countless details about his banking. The code words, the names of his account managers, even some of the passphrases in fleeting moments. She'd always seemed so curious, praising him for his genius. But was it all part of a ruse? He forced a smile, too conflicted to confront her yet. No. We'll keep going. It's your night. I'll handle this. And so the birthday celebration continued, but the joyous air cracked with tension. Andrew downed another glass of scotch, re-entering the crowd and faking confidence. Bella took a seat among the guests, her phone tucked away, not a trace of worry on her face. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Vegas glistened. Inside Andrew's chest, a storm brewed. While the guests reveled somewhere across the globe, a meticulously laid plan was in motion, one that would unravel the empire of Andrew Harrington. The phone call that Bella had taken had set the gears of destruction turning, and not even the brightest lights of Las Vegas could outshine the coming darkness. Daylight spilled through the suite's expansive windows, rudely revealing the aftermath of the celebration. Half-empty champagne flutes cluttered the tables. Confetti lay scattered across the floor, and a few guests slumbered on luxurious sofas, still dressed in their finery. Bella, however, was wide awake, perched gracefully on a chaise lounge, gazing at the neon-stained horizon, now bleached by the sun. Andrew emerged from the bedroom, eyes rimmed with fatigue. He had barely slept, having spent most of the night on calls with lawyers and bankers. His usually impeccable posture sagged with the weight of the crisis. Bella looked up, feigning surprise. "You look exhausted," she said, voice laced with concern. "Didn't you get any rest?" "No," Andrew replied curtly, not bothering to mask his annoyance. "All the accounts are still frozen. Even my personal credit cards are getting declined." He ran a hand through his hair, which was slightly disheveled. "I've got a legal team working non-stop, but so far nobody can figure out the exact directive. It's as if there's some secret court order or something more nefarious at play." Bella set aside her coffee cup. "That's terrible," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "I'm here for you, you know. Whatever you need." Andrew studied her face, searching for sincerity. He found it unnervingly blank. She's either an incredible actress or genuinely concerned. Tired and frazzled, he doubted every thought in his mind. He motioned for her to follow him to a more private spot, away from the sleeping guests and housekeeping staff. They found a secluded corner of the terrace, overlooking the city. The dry desert wind brushed against them, carrying faint hints of casino dust and early morning optimism. Bella Andrew began, voice low and serious. "Someone out there has orchestrated this. Freezing my accounts requires top-level coordination among international banks and regulatory bodies. This isn't a mistake or some random audit. Someone with inside knowledge is pulling strings." Bella's brow furrowed, a delicate wrinkle forming. "And you think it's me?" she asked, sounding offended. "Andrew, how could you even suspect that?" He scrutinized her carefully. "You've asked me questions about my accounts. You've seen me handle documents. I know I've been careless with details when we were together." Her eyes hardened. "Are you accusing me of orchestrating a financial coup against you? Do you have any idea how insane that sounds?" Andrew held her gaze, but doubt gnawed at him. "I don't want to accuse you of anything without proof, but it's hard not to notice the timing. Everything happened exactly on your birthday when I was preoccupied." Bella turned away, feigning hurt. If you really believe I'd sabotage you, then you never truly knew me." She paused, letting her voice waver for effect. "I might not be perfect, but I'm not a traitor." Andrew sighed, feeling both guilty and frustrated. "I don't know what to think anymore. I just need answers." A tense silence stretched between them. Finally, Bella placed a hand on his cheek. "I understand your paranoia. You're a man under attack and you feel cornered. But I swear, Andrew, I have nothing to do with this. Let me help. My father has old diplomatic connections. I can reach out, see if anyone heard of a sealed order against you." The reference to her father gave Andrew pause. He vaguely recalled Bella mentioning a checkered diplomatic past, but he never investigated further. "All right," he said at last. "Do what you can." She nodded, her face solemn. He turned away, gazing out at the sunlit strip. In that moment, Andrew felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he'd overreacted. Maybe Bella's connections could be valuable in unraveling this nightmare. Back inside the suite, Andrew's phone pinged relentlessly with new messages. Lawyers demanded urgent authorizations. CFOs needed immediate instructions. He had to figure out payroll for thousands of employees, handle margin calls on leveraged positions, and reassure key investors that this was just a temporary glitch. But without access to his fortune, his empire was in limbo. As the morning wore on, the guests woke up one by one, each receiving the news in hushed whispers. Richard Delgado offered some words of support, even hinting at bridging Andrew with a short-term liquidity line. Li Wei promised to speak to his contacts in Asian banking circles. Everyone was stunned that someone as powerful as Andrew Harrington could be taken down so swiftly without even a hint of who was behind it. Andrew barely touched the lavish breakfast spread. His appetite for scrambled truffles and gold-flecked pastries had vanished. All he could think about were the mounting calls for debt service, the overdue wires that would trigger defaults, and the irreparable damage to his reputation if this crisis lasted much longer. He stole a glance at Bella, who stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone in hand, making calls in Spanish or Italian, he couldn't tell which. She caught him looking and offered a small nod as if to say, "I'm trying." Yet something about her serene manner unsettled him. Why isn't she more rattled? Then again, Bella's composure was part of what had originally captivated him. She was unflappable under pressure, carrying herself like a queen in every room she entered. He'd found it sexy, a testament to her resilience. Now that same poise triggered suspicion. If only he could see behind her mask. If only he knew the truth that her phone calls this morning weren't to some diplomatic friend, but to a network of financial contacts quietly siphoning control of Andrew's assets. With each passing hour, the noose around Andrew's empire tightened, leaving him powerless to stop it. He forced a smile for the guests, telling them he'd get this sorted out. But deep down, Andrew knew he was grappling with a crisis more severe than anything he had ever faced. And while the morning sun illuminated the strip, it also cast a harsh light on the precarious foundation of Andrew's life, one that was about to crumble in spectacular fashion. Days turned into a frantic blur of conference calls, emergency legal filings, and desperate attempts to unfreeze even a portion of Andrew's assets. Harrington Capital's operations ground to a halt. Employees panicked, and the media caught wind of the storm. Headlines flashed across CNBC, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal Billionaire, Andrew Harrington's empire in legal limbo. Mysterious freeze on Harrington's global assets and a cautionary tale for offshore tycoons. Despite the chaos, Andrew maintained an outward posture of control. He fed the press a carefully worded statement about technical issues with international banking compliance and assured his investors the matter would be resolved shortly. But behind the scenes, he was cornered. Court orders apparently sealed under national security concerns prevented him from accessing details of the freeze. Every lawyer he hired hit a brick wall of bureaucracy. He questioned those in his inner circle. No one admitted to any wrongdoing. His CFO, though terrified, was too loyal and too dependent on Andrew's success to sabotage him. His wife Catherine had not returned to Los Angeles, but sent messages demanding an explanation she'd found out about the Mistress, the corporate meltdown, everything. Catherine hinted at wanting a divorce and demanded her fair share. Even Andrew's once faithful bankers from Zurich to the Caymans dodged his calls or gave half-hearted excuses. He realized in horror that he was losing not just his money, but his carefully cultivated alliances. Wealth, he now understood more than ever, was a lubricant for relationships. Once you lost it, or even the perception of it, friends vanished like smoke. In the midst of this downward spiral, Bella stood steadfast, at least on the surface. She attended meetings with Andrew's crisis management team, offering to leverage her father's supposed diplomatic contacts. She consoled him when he came home each night to the half-empty Beverly Hills mansion, drained and demoralized. She even made a show of calling in favors, though Andrew was never sure who she was really talking to or what these vague connections could accomplish. But Andrew's paranoia grew daily. He started reviewing security footage from the mansion and the office, scanning for clues. Late one evening, he pored over digital logs, noting the times Bella had entered his private study, where he kept sensitive documents. Sure enough, there were patterns nights he'd been away on business, but logs showing her door entry. Why had he never noticed before? Because I was too enchanted. Too foolish, he thought. Andrew decided to confront her. It happened late at night after he returned from a near-disastrous meeting with furious investors. Bella had prepared a simple meal in the mansion's gourmet kitchen, a sign, she said, of her support. Andrew hardly touched the food. Instead, he slammed a folder onto the marble countertop. "What's this about?" Bella asked, startled. "I have security logs showing you accessed my study multiple times when I was out of town," Andrew said bluntly. "Why?" Bella looked taken aback. "Andrew, your study isn't off limits. I was just getting some paperwork for the interior decorator's next project, or looking for a document you mentioned." He cut her off. "Don't insult my intelligence. My study is where I keep sensitive files on my offshore accounts. Either you were looking for something specific, or you were up to something else." Her lips trembled. "You think I went through your financial documents?" "Andrew, I'm not a thief, and I'm not your enemy." His eyes hardened. "Then act like it. If you truly want to help me be honest, did you take anything? Copy anything? Pass anything to third parties? I need to know." Tears welled in Bella's eyes. "This is insane, after everything we've been through." She took a step back, her voice breaking. "I love you, Andrew. I'd never betray you." He stared at her, torn between love and suspicion. The hardest part was that he did still feel something for her even now. The memory of her laughter, the heat of her touch, and the thrilling sense of being understood, they haunted him. His anger faltered. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "But my world is on fire. I can't trust anyone." Bella reached out, gently brushing his cheek. "I understand. Let's get through this together," she whispered, leaning in. Their embrace felt strangely hollow, as if each was clinging to a different delusion. Unknown to Andrew, Bella was pulling every string behind the scenes. Through her father's political channels, she had arranged hush-hush conversations that parlayed Andrew's questionable dealings into a matter of international interest, making it easier for certain agencies to justify the freeze. She also cooperated with a Switzerland-based team that specialized in hostile asset takeovers, funneling legal and financial evidence that painted Andrew as a high-risk offender. Her motive wasn't simply revenge or greed, it was survival. Bella's father had left behind massive debts, entangled with dangerous people who demanded recompense. For Bella, controlling Andrew's empire, or at least ensuring it stayed frozen, bought her time to negotiate deals on her own terms. She had stashed away enough money in carefully constructed trusts to live comfortably, but she wanted more. She had grown addicted to the power she felt manipulating the strings of Andrew's world. One afternoon, while Andrew was at a tense meeting with his attorneys, Bella received a call from an old contact in Milan, someone who once used to handle discreet errands for modeling agencies. "We have a problem," the voice said in Italian. "The authorities are sniffing around your accounts. They suspect Andrew Harrington's mistress has been siphoning funds. They might figure out it's you." Bella's face hardened. She ended the call and looked around the opulent living room. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman at a crossroads. Stay and risk exposure, or flee with whatever she could carry. She weighed the possibilities. If she vanished now, Andrew would suspect her guilt immediately. If she stayed, she might still orchestrate a final play, one that left her in control of a significant chunk of Andrew's holdings once the dust settled. She smoothed her hair and left the mansion, telling the staff she needed fresh air. Stepping into the driveway, she slid into her sleek black convertible, another gift from Andrew. As she drove down Sunset Boulevard, palm trees swaying overhead, Bella calculated her moves. She was no longer satisfied with just freezing Andrew's empire. She wanted to seize it. At the same time, Andrew stood in his office phone, buzzing with more urgent messages from abroad. He could feel the ground crumbling beneath him. If he didn't regain control of his accounts, soon Harrington Capital would go under. His personal brand would be ruined. And ironically, the only person he felt he could turn to was Bella. His greatest weakness, and possibly his most cunning adversary. As secrets unraveled and suspicion mounted, the stage was set for a confrontation that neither Bella nor Andrew could avoid. The question was, who would emerge victorious when love money and betrayal collided in the ultimate high-stakes game? The pressure reached a boiling point 1 week after Bella's birthday. Harrington Capital teetered on the brink of collapse. Creditors lined up to demand payments. Investors threatened lawsuits, and regulatory agencies circled like vultures sniffing out potential criminal activity. Andrew's attorneys managed to unseal part of the court order, revealing a complex matrix of allegations: money laundering, tax evasion, and illicit political contributions. It was as if the entire arsenal of financial wrongdoing had been laid at Andrew's doorstep. On a sweltering afternoon, Andrew summoned Bella to his office. The building was half empty, with employees either laid off or too anxious to come to work. His once grand corner suite felt like a tomb, cold, silent, and haunted by the ghosts of success. Bella arrived dressed elegantly, in a black pencil skirt and a crisp white blouse, her hair swept into a tight chignon. Andrew had never seen her so professional. She exuded a cool confidence that under normal circumstances might have captivated him. Today, however, it only fueled his suspicions. "Close the door," Andrew said, his tone devoid of warmth. Bella complied, stepping forward. The tension in the room was palpable. She noticed the lines etched in Andrew's face, the hollowness in his eyes. She almost felt pity for him. Almost. He clasped his hands on the desk. I got part of the court order unsealed. There are references to information provided by an unnamed confidential source who had detailed knowledge of my offshore structures. He paused, letting the accusation hang in the air. That source can only be you. Bella remained silent, her gaze unwavering. Why Andrew demanded voice thick with anger and a trace of heartbreak. I gave you everything. I trusted you. Why would you do this? Bella let out a long, controlled exhale. Because survival is everything. Andrew, she answered, her voice flat. I grew up watching powerful men devour people, use them, discard them. I vowed that would never happen to me. He stood, fists clenched. You think I was using you? She tilted her chin defiantly. Weren't you a mistress, a secret you could flaunt in private but hide from the world? A trophy, another possession. I refuse to be just another pretty face in your life. Andrew's anger momentarily wavered. So you betray me, ruin me, just to prove you're not disposable. Bella's expression hardened. I did what I had to do. Your empire is dirty, Andrew. Did you honestly think you could avoid consequences forever? When people came to me offering me protection if I cooperated. She trailed off, letting him fill in the blanks. He shook his head, sinking back into his chair. The weight of her words crushed him. Protection. She had leveraged a bigger force, turning his own secrets into her shield. Outside, the Los Angeles sun blazed, reflecting off the skyscrapers. Inside that office, however, time seemed frozen. Andrew sighed, looking at Bella with a mixture of loathing and lingering affection. It's over for me, then, he said quietly. Everything I built, gone. Bella approached the desk. It doesn't have to be. There's a way. He lifted his gaze, cynical. What do you mean? She placed a folder on his desk. Inside were documents that looked like a restructured set of Harrington capital entities, new offshore corporations, discrete bank accounts in Luxembourg, a labyrinth of trusts that had Bella's name embedded in critical managerial roles. I can help you move some of your assets into these new entities, Bella explained. It's not everything but enough to rebuild. You'll have partial control, I'll have partial control, and it will be out of reach from the current freeze. Andrew flipped through the pages, scanning the legalese and the signatory lines. In other words, I sign over half of whatever's left to you, he said, voice trembling with rage. Bella met his eyes. I'm offering you a lifeline. We both benefit. You still want to fight to keep it all. Look at you. You're out of time and out of moves. I can walk away right now and you'll lose every cent. Or we can join forces. Andrew closed the folder with a thud. The realization that his only chance at salvaging something required forging a partnership with the very woman who orchestrated his downfall was a bitter pill to swallow. She's cornered me perfectly. In his mind, 1,000 scenarios flickered, turning her over to the authorities trying to outmaneuver her with new lawyers, maybe even fleeing the country. But every scenario ended in disaster. She's planned for all of it. His gaze roamed over Bella's face one last time. So beautiful, so cold. The memory of their first meeting at the fundraiser played in his mind, a tantalizing dream turned nightmare. I did this to myself, he admitted silently. He took a pen from his desk drawer. eyes never leaving Bella. She watched him with guarded anticipation. Slowly he opened the folder and signed the documents where indicated. Each signature felt like a dagger in his pride. When he finished, he tossed the pen aside. "Congratulations," he said bitterly. "You've won." Bella exhaled relief, shading her features. She carefully took the folder, sliding it into her briefcase. A charged silence lingered, thick with unresolved tension. "Now what?" Andrew asked. Bella's lips curved into a small, sad smile. "Now we carry on. You put on a face for the media claim you've found a legal solution. I'll facilitate the unfreezing of certain accounts. We become business partners in the shadows." Andrew stared at the desk at the spot where his pen had rolled to a stop. "What about us?" She faltered for a moment, the ice in her voice cracking slightly. "There is no us, Andrew. Not anymore." With that, she turned and walked out, leaving him alone in the office, alone with the realization that the woman he once adored was the same woman who now owned him in every sense that mattered. Weeks later, the freeze on Harrington Capital partially lifted just as Bella had promised. Andrew made a carefully crafted public statement about having resolved a misunderstanding and declared that Harrington Capital was entering a new phase with a strategic partner. Nobody outside their circle would ever know the humiliating truth that Andrew Harrington, the self-made mogul, was now tethered to the cunning Mistress who had orchestrated the largest freeze on a private fortune in recent history. And Bella. She played the role of an independent investor, reaping the rewards of their secret arrangement. She stayed out of the limelight, preferring to manipulate events from the shadows, precisely where she was most powerful. In the end, Andrew had retained a fragment of his empire, but lost his freedom. Bella had become an unstoppable force, her hands on the very levers of wealth that once only Andrew could pull. They were bound together by a twisted contract, inked in betrayal. A testament to how in the highest circles of power, love and loyalty are often the first casualties of ambition. And there you have it, the unforgettable tale of how one man's quest for more led him into the clutches of a woman determined never to be just the mistress. Andrew Harrington thought he could conquer the world and keep his secrets locked away. But secrets are never safe in the hands of the cunning. Through careful planning, Bella Rosario spun a web that not only cost Andrew his fortune, almost, but sealed her place as a power player in a realm she once only dreamed of entering. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to give this video a like, share it with friends who love a little scandal, and subscribe for more riveting stories of ambition, betrayal, and the hidden world of wealth. Every click of that thumbs up and subscribe button helps us bring you more dramatic tales. Until next time, remember, keep your secrets close and your lovers closer.